Hi, so I've mentioned in my past videos how I have a few chronic conditions that make recovering from my stroke more difficult. And all of those are related to me being a type 1 diabetic for so long. I was diagnosed as a diabetic in 1984, and by the time 1994 rolled around, I was already starting to have high blood pressure, and I was immediately started on blood pressure medication and cholesterol medication. And having those two medications probably helped me stave off the full-on heart disease as long as I did, which was until around 2009, I think, when I was walking to work. I lived in Cincinnati, and I lived close to the building at University of Cincinnati that I worked at. And I had to go down a long slope hill and then up a shorter slope to my building. And it got to the point where by the time I got to the top of that second hill, I started feeling pressure behind my sternum, like some little leprechaun was inside my chest, pushing on the back of the sternum. That came with making it harder to breathe too. So I immediately went and found a cardiologist who started me on a second blood pressure medication and signed me up for a cardiac catheterization where they run a camera tube through your femoral artery all the way up to the arteries in your heart to look for blockages. I ended up having blockages in two of my cardiac arteries, and then they scheduled another catheterization where they installed stents in two of my arteries. Because I went to a doctor as soon as I felt that pressure, I was able to get off without having a heart attack. I just had a little bit of chest pain. There have been other times when I've noticed something wrong, where I went straight to a doctor to have it looked at, and in the mid-90s, I started having these dark spots in my field of view in my right eye. And so I went to my family doctor, told her about it, and she signed me up to see this specialist, an ophthalmologist that deals with diabetic retinopathy. He gave me a contrast injection of a glowing fluid so that he could take pictures of the back of my eye with a special camera to show him that I had little capillaries growing out to the back of my retina into my eye. And when that happens, they have to do something about it right away because they'll burst. So I got an appointment to have laser surgery on my retinas to get rid of those loose capillaries. But before I could get to that appointment, while I was playing a video game, one of those capillaries burst and I bled into my eyeball. And it blocked my vision in that eye completely. I got really scared and I went to the ER, and they basically told me all you could do is wait for that blood to reabsorb into your eye So I had to wait for like 2 more weeks. No, it was about a month, I think, before I could go and have the laser surgery to fix the capillaries. They basically cauterize all of the capillaries in your retina so they won't bleed. Hey, kitty.
They can't see him. The camera angle is too high.
Oh. And he wants to be on camera, does he?
Okay. He can be on camera. Here you go. Here's Screaming on camera. Except he doesn't like being held, so.
Yeah.
Thought you also want to talk about how you got diagnosed with diabetes. Who did it?
Oh, yeah. So, my older brother had been diabetic since he was 2 years old, so I knew all the symptoms. And I was in a new school at the time in Dixon, Illinois. And I kept having to ask the teacher for a hall pass to go use the bathroom. And I knew, because of my older brother, that frequent urination was a sign of diabetes. So I went with my mom to our doctor and I told him I'm diabetic. And he did a test. He said, yes, you're right, you are diabetic. And then I had to go and get my first insulin and syringes. The classic kind of syringes, insulin pens didn't exist yet. Actually, Humalog didn't exist yet either. They're still using regular and NPH insulin. So for the rest of my teen years, I wasn't taking care of my blood sugars very well. And that led to other serious health problems where I went into some commonly called a diabetic coma, but the medical word for it is ketoacidosis. Ended up having to be in the hospital for 2.5 weeks on that one as I recovered from it. I got back to I can't do quotes because my left hand doesn't work. So I got back to a norm for my blood sugar. After that, I did a little bit better at keeping my blood sugars low.